Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Thomas. I'm the National Organizing Manager with Food and Water Watch, and I'm really excited about our first virtual conference and to be joined by my friend and ally, Dallas Goldtooth of the Indigenous Environmental Network.
My name is Dallas Goldtooth. I am a Dakota and Dene man from Dakota Territories in Minnesota, and I'm the Keep It in the Ground campaigner with the Indigenous Environmental Network, and I'm really happy to be joining you today.
Awesome. So in this session, Dallas and I are going to be sharing more about our work to address the climate crisis, and specifically a campaign that we're working on together to demand that President Biden use his authority to reject fossil fuel projects and actually keep coal and oil and gas in the ground. So Dallas, do you want to start by just talking more about the campaign and the coalition that we're a part of?
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. You know, many of us in the climate movement, in this climate justice struggle, in those of us who've been fighting fossil fuels for many years, have been fighting pipelines, we've been fighting fracking and other fossil fuel projects for a long time. We fought the Keystone XL pipeline. We've fought against deep sea oil drilling up in the Arctic or off the coast of many different countries. We've fought the expansion of drilling in the Gulf Coast and the Gulf of Mexico. It's just a lot of projects, to be absolutely honest, over the years. When you think about all these different fights, who are often led by frontline communities who are merely trying to protect themselves, their water, their air, their livelihoods. And we've won some of those fights. But to be honest, we're running out of time to fight these projects piece by piece. We can't be playing whack-a-mole anymore. The truth is, President Biden and his administration have the power and the authority to stop these dangerous projects and keep fossil fuels in the ground as we speak right now. President Biden can direct his administration and agencies to reject all permits for fossil fuel projects. And that's exactly what the latest scientific reports that have been conducted by the United Nations, as well as the International Energy Agency, have been saying for a while, but their recent reports are coming out are reinforcing the absolute necessity for us to stop the expansion of fossil fuels now in order to avoid the worst impacts of this climate crisis, which is causing climate chaos. And all of this to say is really giving us cause. It's giving us a reason to take action. This is why Indigenous communities, frontline leaders, Black, Brown, Indigenous folks, with the support of organizations like mine, like the Indigenous Environmental Network, as well as Food and Water Watch, and hundreds of other organizations are coming together at the end of 2020, or came together at the end of 2020 to start this campaign called Build Back Fossil Free. It was a concentrated effort to say, hey, what are we doing to hold the Biden administration accountable to address the climate crisis? And we are right now working together to demand that President Biden use his executive authority to reject fossil fuel projects and to declare a climate emergency. This year, we generated thousands of messages and phone calls to the White House. We organized letters from hundreds of organizations and local elected officials and held rallies in Washington, D.C. and across the country. And yet, despite all of the evidence, all the wildfires and the floods and hurricanes, all these disasters, and all the people calling out the president, urging him to take action, his administration continues to support the fossil fuel industry. Earlier this month, President Biden toured the damage from Hurricane Ida in Louisiana and New York. And the same week, his administration started issuing more leases and permits for oil drilling on federal lands. We cannot allow this to continue. So we're stepping up our demands and our actions. In the next 2 weeks, starting on October 11th, hundreds, possibly thousands of people will come to D.C. to engage in peaceful civil disobedience outside the White House to demand that President Biden reject fossil fuel projects and declare a climate emergency.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm really excited about this action that Dallas just kind of led us into. So we'll be holding peaceful sit-ins outside of the White House and the Capitol every day from Monday, October 11th through Friday, October 15th. And this will probably result in people being arrested, and that's the plan. We are doing this because history has shown that nonviolent civil disobedience is a crucial tool to bring about social change. And that's especially important when we are going up against the power of the fossil fuel industry, the most powerful, the richest industry in the history of the world. So again, we're coming to DC, folks from all of these fossil fuel resistance fights that Dallas mentioned, for a whole week of nonviolent civil disobedience to really lay the responsibility for this crisis at Biden's doorstep. So I mentioned the first day of these actions is Monday, the 11th, which is Indigenous Peoples Day. So Dallas, do you want to talk about the significance of starting on Indigenous Peoples Day and highlight some of the leaders who are helping to organize the action?
Yeah, I feel it's absolutely essential that we start this action on Indigenous Peoples Day, because oftentimes it is Indigenous peoples who are on the front lines in the frontline fights against not only the extraction of fossil fuels, but also the result of our usage of fossil fuels, whether it's forest-dependent communities and tribal nations, whether it's ocean-dependent, river-dependent nations who are all feeling the effects of the climate chaos that's happening around us. Representing so many different struggles, because it's not just a matter of, we need to protect the ecological sanctity of our local ecosystems. It's about protecting the future of all life on this planet. I'm so excited that we're bringing together all these different voices and leaders, folks from the Permian Basin, folks who are fighting pipelines, folks who are fighting fracking development, folks who are fighting the protection of the Gulf Coast region, or fighting to protect the Ohio River Valley. Like, so many different key voices all coming to DC, potentially with you and other allies, to really raise the alarm and let this administration know that true action is needed right now. And this movement, this event was started with a letter that was written by a lot of these frontline leaders that went live in August. We announced this whole action with a call to action of sorts from many of these frontline leaders.
Yeah, so Dallas mentioned this letter, and I would encourage everyone to read the letter. It's online at peopleversusfossilfuels.org. We can put a link in the chat, but I'll just read a snippet right now. So the frontline leaders wrote this letter. They wrote, "If you have ever marched, rallied, called your representatives, lobbied, or signed petitions to your elected officials, we call on you to take the next step. Nonviolent civil disobedience is a time-tested tactic for change. Every movement for change, from the suffragettes to the civil rights movement, has proven that the defining moments are those where people are willing to risk arrest. So if we all come together, put our bodies on the line in the name of climate justice, we may be able to change the course of history." So again, that's just a little snippet. You can read the full letter at peopleversusfossilfuels.org. And I should mention that's the name of this mobilization. So again, it's 5 days from Monday, the 11th of October through Friday, the 15th. We're calling it People versus Fossil Fuels. That's really the choice that President Biden needs to make. And obviously, we are on the side of the people, and he needs to stand with us against the fossil fuel industry. So I hope you've heard this invitation, this call to action, from many of the leaders that Dallas mentioned and that we're lucky to be working with on this campaign. And again, that you're ready to join us in DC. But this is a big request, to come to DC, be arrested outside the White House, to stand against fossil fuels and to stand up for climate justice. So there's a lot of logistics involved, and I thought we'd go over some of that now. We've got a really amazing crew and an experienced crew of organizers and trainers and facilitators that are helping with all of this. So there will be a training and a legal briefing each night prior to the action. So this is really important for everyone participating in civil disobedience. Everyone should be on the same page about the plan and kind of what's going to happen the next morning. So plan to come to DC the day before you'll participate in the action. So again, 5 days of action. You don't need to come for the whole week. We're asking people to come and participate in civil disobedience on one of those days, but plan to come the day before so you can attend this training. There'll be legal support to answer all of your questions. We've got a crew of lawyers who are helping us with this. And a lot of that information is actually already on the website. So common question, common situations that people are in, you can check that info out. We can't guarantee exactly what the process for arrest will be, but the most likely scenario is that you'll be given a citation that's similar to a traffic ticket, held and processed for a few hours, and then given the option to pay a small fine and be released the same day. All of the trainings will be outdoors at a park in DC, and the actions themselves will start from that same park. So we're keeping all of the programming outdoors, and we're actually requiring that people who participate in civil disobedience show proof of vaccination against COVID-19 and that everyone wear a mask throughout. So we can't eliminate the risk entirely, but requiring vaccinations, wearing masks, and keeping everything outdoors really, really reduces the risk for any of the people involved. And again, that information is on the website, and we'll be following up with people in the lead up to make sure that we're being as safe as possible, and that we're really checking all those boxes that we need to. So again, peopleversusfossilfuels.org. We'll put that in the link, or put the link in the chat to get all that information. We've also got tips on arranging transportation and housing and other logistics you can find there to make your plans. So Dallas, we've got a few minutes left, and I thought maybe we could just share our experiences with civil disobedience, especially for people who haven't done this kind of thing before. It's a big step to take. It's a big request for us to make of people. So yeah, do you want to just kind of share your thoughts on the role of civil disobedience or your personal experiences?
Look, when private citizens confront the injustice of governments or empires or bankers or whatever it may be, they often face an oppressor who has much more resources than them, has much more power than them, when it comes to the system in which they live. And so we have to use whatever we have within our capability to push back. And so this is the moment for us to assert the moral justice, to assert the mandate of the people, to say you have to change, and we are willing to risk arrest. We're willing to put our lives on the line for this fight. So that's my experience on this, that civil disobedience works. Civil disobedience gets the job done. And peaceful direct action is a process that can truly move mountains. And I ask you to consider what you can do and how you might be able to support us in this effort with the People versus Fossil Fuels Week of Action. I'll pass back to you.
That's all right. And the historical kind of evidence and precedent for the effectiveness of this kind of action, it doesn't happen overnight, but it's hard to find, if you look at the kind of life cycle of these struggles for justice, like Dallas mentioned, it's hard to find an example where there wasn't this kind of action or this kind of sacrifice. And I'll just share my kind of first involvement with the climate movement was actually through the sit-ins at the White House against the Keystone XL pipeline, which was a full decade ago, starting in 2011 when I was in college in DC, and then again in 2014. And those were really meaningful experiences for me to make that a sacrifice. Like Dallas said, it's nothing compared to what people on the front lines both dealing with, police and surveillance and violence when they're fighting these projects, but also just the direct harms, the pollution, the climate impacts, the sacrifice of coming to DC to say no more, to say that we are willing to go to jail for a few hours or for a day in large numbers by the hundreds or the thousands to stand against this. That's where our power comes from in these cases. So I'll just say again, if you haven't done this kind of thing before, we know it's a big request. President Biden can do so much more to fight climate change, but we really need to force him to do it and stand up against the power of the fossil fuel industry. So, Dallas and I are here just to ask you to stand with us and join this, and we can support each other in taking this step.
That's right. I know we're getting ready to wrap up here, but I can't stress it enough. Like this, we're in a critical moment right now. Science backs us up. The latest UN reports all say it, that we're in a code red situation, and that merely reinforms traditional indigenous ecological knowledge, which we've been saying for generations, that the clearest path forward for us to get to start the process of healing the planet and our relationship to the planet is to keep fossil fuels in the ground. The only way that we can truly do right by Mother Earth in those many countless communities who are carrying the brunt of the oil and gas industry's existence is by getting outside of our comfort zones, taking some chances, and really putting our faith in the collective power of the many. We are very, very aware that this week of action is merely a major part of this growing movement, and that right around the corner is the United Nations Climate Change Conference, and we expect President Biden to show up and this administration to say, hey, look at all the great things we're doing. Look at all the beautiful things the U.S. is doing to fight climate change. And we are going to be there. This action is a part of this movement to say, no. You can't go before the world and say we're doing something great about the planet while we're still allowing the expansion of fracking and fossil fuels. You can't do that. That's hypocritical. And we, the people who elected you into office, are going to hold you to that. So I just want to stress that this is something powerful, something amazing. And I look forward to seeing some of you there. If not all of you, I hope to see you there.
Check out the website. It's peopleversusfossilfuels.org. Thank you so much, Dallas, for walking us through that and giving us this really important context. And for everyone who joined us, as part of the conference today, thank you again. If you have any questions, feel free to just email me directly. I can put my email address in the chat. And again, really hope that we can see a lot of you in DC to take part in what I'm hoping will really be a historic week of action. So thank you again to Dallas. Thank you for everyone who joined, and enjoy the rest of the conference. And again, hope to see many of you in DC in just a couple weeks. Thanks, everyone.